I think one thing people get concerned about is, which do I launch? And if I launch, is it going to fail or is it going to go the right way? Have you had a whole list of companies that you've tried and failed? Do you typically end up with it where they're more successful? Do you have any stories around some of those that you've tried and that didn't go as expected?
One example of a company that we work with where things didn't go as anticipated is one AI-focused company. It has agent assist technology that tries to autocomplete sentences that agents type in real time, primarily in the context of an email response to customers. So it takes historical contact data in terms of what responses worked well and are correlated with higher satisfaction and so forth. And then as you're typing, it tries to autocomplete your sentences. So kind of like what Gmail does, where sometimes it's a few words, or it could be a full sentence, or it could be a number of sentences. So all strung together. And of course, the goal is to increase agent efficiency and to reduce average handle time on tickets and average response time for email tickets. The system didn't work for us for a few different reasons. One reason is that we're not really scripted enough as a company where there was a ready reservoir of repeatable phrases and terminologies that could be fed into the system. So there are many instances where the system, if we were more scripted, could perhaps have offered more relevant suggestions to agents, but it didn't. So a lot of the suggestions it offered ended up being very basic ones, as opposed to a lot of substantive information that agents could use. Another factor that we discovered is that the types of suggestions that were being sent to agents that were more than a few words long tended to be very, very routine things that weren't adding much value. So they were things like a basic greeting, so a standard greeting or a standard sign off. And that was like 2/3 of them. And like 10% of them involved just like some basic phrasing we would give when we were offering a refund to someone. So all things that we could put in our own templates and didn't need a technology system for. Another thing is we did an analysis as to how agents were interacting with the suggestions. And we found that even though they were accepting a lot of the suggestions by tabbing their way through things, they also were correcting over a majority of them. So the efficiency that we thought we were getting from the experience by saying, oh, on average, these suggestions have 9 words, and you try to get an idea of how much time you're saving from that. In reality, we're not saving that much time, because then you have to add the fact that the agents are going in and changing a few of those words, which is taking time. So the efficiency, even when people are using the system, wasn't quite there. Lastly, there wasn't enough agent adoption as we anticipated. So some agents loved it, but some agents said, it's just kind of distracting seeing these words pop up, and they weren't really interested in using it. So that also was a factor. It's kind of a combination of a lot of different factors, where other companies I could see more scripted probably worked very, very well for them. But in our particular case, it just didn't work as well.
Just on that note, do you have, with the different talent that you're hiring, do you run into issues at all with, agents writing things that aren't approved, being that they have more freedom? How do you keep it within the guardrails is that through training, or how do you manage that?
Sure. We primarily do that through our quality assurance program. The reason we give a lot of leeway and templates is primarily because we discovered even when we were giving templates to agents, they weren't necessarily using them. And they would always keep like a separate document of their own templates. So part of it is just acknowledging the fact that you can't get around human creativity, because that's kind of what it comes down to. So people will find a way to make their life more efficient, because the agents are incentivized to be efficient. So they find their own means of efficiency. So rather than trying to create a structure that forces them not to do that and end up looking very starchy about it, and perhaps getting in the way of them being efficient, we thought, well, let's not interrupt that. So if it works for agents, that's fine. And let's find another way that we can police it more indirectly, so to speak. And we do that through a pretty robust quality assurance program. The quality assurance program started very, very early. So I wanted to establish it about 4 months into my time at Freshly, when we only had like 6 people. But it came from my experience that you really need to have a robust quality assurance program from the start, just to make sure that you're setting the right standards for the agents ultimately who follow you, and people don't get an opportunity to add bad habits into the fray, because it's much harder to impose quality or certain quality standards on people after you have the machine up and running than it is early on. So we had this quality assurance program very early on. It has 5 pillars in it, and each pillar represents one of the key pillars that for us represent a good customer experience. So like empathy is one pillar. And then under the pillars, there are yes/no questions that our QA specialists have to answer that guide the score they should give an agent in each area. So the idea is to try to take these concepts that are relatively intangible and try to make them more tangible through a scoring system and a series of yes/no questions. And then that results in a score that agents get, and then that factors into their monthly reviews and their biannual and annual reviews. So that is really the system by which we keep track of what agents are doing. So if they're using a template that is saying the wrong thing, that chances are is going to get caught up in that quality assurance process, and that's where that would be pointed out to them and corrected.